Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ahlan, ahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. Selamat datang to the monthly Shariah webinar series of 2025. We are proudly brought to you by Bank Rakyat, INCEIF University, and also International Islamic University of Malaysia, and the Derasat of Research and Consulting Islamic Banking. Before that, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Shakir Izzat bin Azman, your MC today, inshallah, for this webinar. So today's webinar is the sixth webinar of this year, as we continue to bring new, interesting, pertinent topics from experts around the world on Islamic finance. And today, alhamdulillah, our topic will be on climate finance, tapping into the potential of Islamic finance in Malaysia. And we are gladly and honored to have Dr. Noor Suhaida Kasri, the Deputy Director of Excellence for Applied Shariah in Economics and Finance, CASHiEF, ISRA Institute, INCEIF University, to present this topic today, inshallah. Before we start our session today, I would love to give a brief background on Dr. Noor. Dr. Noor has received her Doctor of Philosophy in Islamic Banking, Finance and Management from the University of Gloucestershire. Is it correct, the pronunciation, Dr. Noor?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire, United Kingdom, under the sponsorship of ISRA. Her master-in-law was from King's College of London, under the funding of the British Chevening Scholarship Award. Her Bachelor of Laws and Diploma in Sharia Legal Practice was from International Islamic University of Malaysia. Prior to joining ISRA, she had almost 12 years of experience as Malaysian advocate and solicitress as well as the Shari'i law. She also sat as one of the MUFG Bank Malaysia Berhad Shariah Committee members from 2017 to 2020. Her research interest is in law, regulation, sustainability, social and ethical finance. She has written a number of research papers, articles, and textbook chapters, and presented at conference globally. Before I pass the floor to our speaker today, to our honorable speaker today, Dr. Noor, I would like to remind everyone to please submit your questions and Q&A via the window below, and we will do our best to cover all the questions within the allotted time. We will first give the privilege to our panelists to give questions and start reading the questions in the comment below, inshallah. And I think that's it. Dr. Noor, without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to you. فليتفضل مشكورا.
Thank you, Brother Shakir, for your kind introduction. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thank you very much, Bank Rakyat, for kindly supporting us, and therefore we have this webinar, alhamdulillah. And I do hope that this webinar will be a catalyst to spread more knowledge, to understand more Islamic finance, and to see how we can grow Islamic finance from sustainability angle, inshallah. Okay, while preparing back for my presentation today, I was looking back into the title that I proposed to earlier on, which was Climate Finance, Tapping the Potential of Islamic Finance in Malaysia. Then when I look back, I was thinking that it would be more appropriate for the title to be a little bit tweaked. We tweak it to tapping the potential for Islamic finance in Malaysia to see what are the potentials that Islamic finance can tap, coming from this sustainability or climate angle, climate action angle, inshallah. So I will try my best to present this topic. Okay, this area, I'm still new in this area. I have to say that in advance. But Alhamdulillah, we were given this opportunity to undertake a very interesting research to explore and see how is the state of Islamic climate finance in Malaysia. So Alhamdulillah, much of the information that we've gathered is presented here, inshallah. Yeah. So next, I hope everybody can see my slide and can hear me well, inshallah.
Yes, we can hear you, inshallah.
All right, thank you, Brother Aizat. All right, the way I've arranged the presentation, the first we're gonna see the climate imperative, okay, to see how important climate is, okay, and where this climate will relate to the funding gap, because the topic of our sharing session today is on climate finance. So we're gonna talk to see where is the funding gap. And we also would see, we will also look into how's the market Islamic finance in Malaysia, and also what are the policies that has been supporting this sustainability and also supporting this climate agenda, and also to see the relationship between climate and Maqasid Shariah, which is ethical foundation. Yeah. So this I will go in brief because I cannot go more than 40 minutes, 45 minutes to give more ample time for Q&A. And then we will see in brief how Islamic climate finance has been mobilized. And we have I try to highlight some case studies to show that how Islamic finance has contributed to climate financing. And finally, we will see what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, and what could be the recommendations. Yeah. So as mentioned earlier, this presentation is the result of our research that we have conducted studying the state of Islamic climate finance in Malaysia. So the data that we got is the data source is very much from the Islamic financial institutions, the corporations in Malaysia, the annual reports, the sustainability reports, and also from the data coming from Banegara and also Securities Mission, and also of course from Bloomberg and BIGS. So this is based on our analysis. Therefore, when it comes to climate in Malaysia, I think as well globally, of course, in terms of Malaysia, there is, and of course other countries, there is rising temperatures. So that's increased by 0.19% Celsius to 0.30 Celsius per decade. So that shows the rising temperature. That of course, with the rising temperature, I think you are very quite familiar to hear this kind of narration coming, rising temperature, and then therefore there is severity and apa tu frequent flood to Malaysia, exposure to floods. So that kind of massive physical risk cause a lot of losses to Malaysia, especially looking from the financial losses. Yeah, so it was expected that this flood event, which is frequency, the intensity, with the increase of the intensity, the annual losses has been estimated to about ringgit Malaysia 400 billion for over 100 years if unmitigated. So you're talking about I think we don't have to see beyond our country. We can just see at the place, like for example, I live in Klang Valley. So for example, if you recall last 2 years, if I'm mistaken, we have this massive flood happening in Shah Alam. So you see that people are stranded and the home are damaged, everything damaged. So businesses, homeowners, business owners, they lost their business. So to revive back, what can we expect government to help the country? Not only we expect the government to help, but also we expect more of a nation kind of assistance, like from private sector, not only from public sector. Yeah. So these are the kind of thing that we're talking about here. So besides the physical risk that we are facing, we also face threats to the natural capital. Coral bleaching, deforestation, and habitat destruction are increasing. Kalau you tengok Sabah, at the Sabah, they will show how the coral has been bleached. Also that because of the temperature, the high rise of the temperature, increase of the temperature. So that is not good for our well-being as well. So another thing that is also facing this climate is the transition risk, economic and transition risk. So transition risk is happening because of the transition that we need to transition from the fossil fuel to the green energy. So that would definitely have some risk in terms of business risk, financial losses, and of course there would be some lowering in the asset values, and of course it will affect the financial stability. So these are the threats that is affecting Malaysia as well as globally. So we need to take the right action, appropriate right action from now, which Malaysia has taken some positive steps. Yeah. So in terms of scale of challenge and what are the gaps that we're talking about here? So the funding gap is estimated to be about 375 billion US dollar to 415 billion dollar, which is equivalent to up to 1.85 ringgit Malaysian trillion, would be needed by 2050 for energy transition and adaptation measures. That is just for energy transition and adaptation measures. So you can see whenever we hear this, so definitely automatically we can translate that into, so this can be, then we can tap it, as industry, Islamic financial industry. This is somewhere that we can tap, especially where Malaysia is a leader in Islamic finance. So this is a time for Malaysia to take the lead as the Islamic sustainability financing in the world. So this is something that we can tap and we can leverage on. Now, Malaysia has come up with a very ambitious national targets. Okay, so what Malaysia is targeting is to unconditionally reducing 45% in their GHG emission. Okay, intensity of GDP by 2030 against the 2005 levels. So that means that we have a huge task to do in reducing the GHG emission, and we are expiring to meet the net zero emission by 2050. So we do not know whether are we able to do that, but hopefully we are able to do that, and more so that with the Madani government Madani, we have this Madani principle, and I think you can see all the policies that the government is issuing right now is leading towards meeting this national climate agenda. So with everybody's cooperations, inshallah, based on what we have discovered in our research, we do see there is potentials, for Malaysia to meet that, but subject to getting everybody's cooperation, private sector and also everybody's the stakeholders. Now, why is Islamic finance? So Islamic finance is because of the position of Malaysia in the Islamic finance landscape, global landscape. So we see there is a lot of opportunity for Islamic finance. In fact, global Islamic finance asset were 4.5 trillion in US dollar in 2022, and that is projected to reach US dollar 6.7 trillion by 2027. So you can see there will be the asset will keep increasing. So where can this be? So these are the things that can be tapped by Islamic finance. Okay, so in terms of Malaysia, where is Malaysia? Malaysia is leading in terms of the sukuk. It counts for 35% of the total outstanding global sukuk. And in fact, Islamic banking assets in Malaysia is currently at 45.6%. This is in 2023 as reported, out of the total country's total banking system. So it shows that Islamic banking, the potential is so great there. It's growing year by year. So this is another catalyst, another potential for Islamic finance. And then in terms of leading, we are also leading country in Islamic finance development indicators in 2023. In fact, we keep on leading the international market. So this is an opportunity for Malaysia. Now, when you look back into where we are right now, we have chose these two important so-called sectors. One is Sukuk, okay, the other one is VBI segment, okay, because we do see that that SRI Sukuk is really growing, okay. In fact, if you can see in the graph, okay, you can show that there is a growth quadruple in just 2 years, yeah, from 10.58 billion ringgit Malaysia in 2022 to 39.51 billion in 2024. We're talking about SRI Sukuk, okay? We're not talking about the general Sukuk. So just on SRI Sukuk alone. Of course, we compared with the general Sukuk, we are still not there, but still that shows there's appetite, there's supply and demand, inshallah. So in terms of that is on the Islamic capital market side, but when you look into the VBI, the Islamic banking value-based intermediation, we can also see that there is a surge in the net zero and green financing by Islamic banking. It surged from 7.1 billion ringgit Malaysia in 2021 to 25.9 billion ringgit Malaysia in 2023. So you can see there's a considerable, a huge jump, yeah. So this represents a 265% increase in 2 years, showing rapid adoption of VBI principle for climate action. Okay, so there is this signals a lot of message for us that I think it's timely for Islamic finance to move to this sector, which is sustainable, which I believe Islamic banking industry is doing so, yeah, because of that it shows the growth, yeah. To show you how Malaysia has, in terms of the government support from the policy and from also market regulators in supporting this climate action. So you can see, in fact, this, when you talk about climate, it's not something new because in 1980s, from the 1980s, we already have these foundational environment policies. We have Environmental Quality Act. Of course, now it has grown into multiple acts or typical diversified acts or law, but just showing you that we are already having this mindset of taking care of environment, yeah. But of course, with SDG, with ESG, that becoming more and more popular. But as far as Malaysia is concerned, environment has been something that has been a concern and has been government has taken a proactive action in taking care of the environment quality. But of course, at that stage is very much on limited sectors. But now we're talking about quite more diverse sectors. Yeah. So and you can start seeing from there, 1980s, 1990s, beginning 2000s, you can see the government setting clear climate targets. Yeah, you can see national policy on environment. But of course there are many. But for the sake of this presentation, we will only choose the relevant ones. And then from next 10 years, the following next 10 years, by 2010s, you can start seeing the policies being issued by market regulators. Yeah, in fact, you can start seeing the element of sustainability in the Securities Commission blueprint in the financial sector of Bank Negara from 2010 onwards. They started to mention sustainability, environment, ethical. So that the feeling is already there. Okay, so it's not a surprise. By 2014, Securities Commission launched the SRI Sukuk framework, which facilitate the issuance of green sukuk, SDG sukuk, SRI sukuk, and related to sustainability. And by 2017, Bank Negara launched the value-based intermediation. And Alhamdulillah, after that, we had the world first green SRI sukuk Tadau Energy, which issued for 250 million. This is the first, and ever since then, I think, I remember, I think as of now, we are leading in green sukuk issuance in the world. Yeah. So by 2020, it's becoming more modern, more advanced, where I think you have been hearing this quite often. The climate change and principle-based taxonomy CCPT, which Bank Negara has its taxonomy, and also Securities Commission has launched its taxonomy, yeah, which is more of a principle-based. And besides that, you can see more and more national policies that directs toward green energy, like for example, National Energy Transition Roadmap (NETA), which aims to attract 1.2 trillion ringgit Malaysia investment. So this is something to be tapped on, yeah. So, and also now we are, I think. There's also a framework that has been introduced, okay, where it imposes a mandatory climate-related finance disclosure for listed companies. Yeah, so this is, as you can see, how Malaysia is driving the climate action initiatives. So you can see not only we will show you not only from the policy angle, but also when you see on the market, on the ground, the action is start growing. Yeah. We can also see besides these are pretty important national strategic roadmaps. Okay, we have NETA, National Energy Transition Roadmap, which targets 70% renewable energy in installed capacity by 2050. And they in NETA, they identified 10 flagship initiatives expected to attract 1.2 trillion ringgit Malaysia to 1.85 trillion ringgit Malaysia in investment. So this is something that is a potential for Islamic finance as well. So we also have new industrial master plan, NIMP 2030, which focuses on revitalizing the manufacturing sector with sustainability and high value activities and core principles. And of course, we have 12th Malaysian plan, which is due. I think I heard in the news that in July they're going to present the 13th Malaysian plan, yeah, because we are already at 2025. But this 12th Malaysian plan is very important because it kind of spur pushing more of sustainability and green growth, yeah, as it forms as a fundamental pillars in the national development. So this is an important base foundation for all these other sustainability related policies in Malaysia. I think I've mentioned to you earlier on of all this, and also one important platform that needs to be mentioned is the JC3, Joint Committee on Climate Change, that actually is an industry movement, but of course with the guidance from the regulators, SC, and also Bank Negara, and also Bursa Malaysia as well. So they are driving furthering more climate action, guiding the financial sector in implementing the policies and guidance, yeah, in the risk management, disclosures, and bridging the data gap. The gap is one of the key challenge, yeah, we discovered in our work. So besides that, besides we have policies, it's also important for me to highlight that we also have incentive, because incentive is very important, because without incentive we cannot spur the appetite, yeah, of players in the market to invest or to offer financing. So that is to spur the appetite. So we have quite several incentives offered by the market regulators, also by the government. So for example, we have SRI Sukuk and Bond Grant Scheme, where it covers, this is administered by SC, which Securities Commission, which it covers up to 90% of the external review cost for issuing SRI, Sukuk and bonds, but capped at 200,000. Yeah, so this will support the issuance of sustainable and green financial instrument. We also have tax deduction and stamp duty deduction for Islamic capital market products that promote sustainable Islamic finance investment. Besides that, we have also grants and financing scheme, which I'm not going to go in detail, but enough to show you how Malaysia we I think as far as we see the way Malaysia is doing it is Malaysia is trying their very best to create a conducive ecosystem, not only talking from the high level perspective but also making sure that to get the market to grow and to the people to actually support this facility, to support this agenda. So they need to create a viable what you call it, environment and ecosystem. Yeah, so this is important, that then you see how incentive is offered, and also many that will create per the supply and demand appetite. Yeah, now this is where we would like to show that how Islamic finance is connected, how environment is connected with Sharia. So for Sharia, for Maqasid, the objective of Sharia and sustainability, they are mutually reinforcing. Okay, they are very, very symbiotic in nature. So because of that, even because of this faith that we have as Muslim, preservation of environment, hifzul al-bi'ah, is not just a mere ethical values, but it is a religious obligation which has now been integrated into financial decision making. So you see how important that preserving environment. Now, because of this industry, we have turned into financial decision making. And also another concept that is crucial in driving this climate action is the concept of stewardship, khalifatul fil ard. Yeah, so where this concept of principle mandates for Islamic financial institutions to actively direct capital to restore the environment. Of course, as a Khalifa, we have to preserve and protect the environment that Allah has created for us, So that's why in anything, especially for Islamic finance industry, it is very important having as the intermediary, having the responsibility in taking care of the funds, in mobilizing it to the right channel. So you must make sure that this capital or this fund is directed to restore environment and divest from industry causing demonstrable harm, which is like fossil fuels. Okay, and also as another concept, which is maslahah, which is public interest. Okay, this is very important, which you always hear of it. So this is very much addressing climate change. Addressing climate change is very essential, because by addressing climate change, you are protecting the well-being, you are promoting the well-being of the humanity. So this is the core purpose of Sharia. So this is driven by the la dara wa la dirar, which is to do no harm. So I think you can see, even when you compare to I think if you go to the taxonomy of Bank Negara and even taxonomy of Securities Commission, you can see these are the kind of similarity in the concept that has been chosen, less harm, to do no harm. So of course, that's why we can see there is a very mutual connection, relationship between environment, climate action with Sharia, with Islamic finance for that matter, So therefore, because of this concept, Islamic finance should move from a passive prohibition-based model to an active solution-oriented one. So this actually should spur Islamic finance to take more proactive action, more of giving solutions to the problem, which is we talk about climate change problem issue here. Now, we will see in terms of how has our sectors, the public sectors, our Islamic financial industries, and also our Islamic banks, that has branches outside Malaysia. How has they performed? How has they delivered and meeting this climate action agenda? Okay, so of course, when you talk about this particular industry, they are driven by our national agendas. They are being directed to meet this national agenda. So because of that, because of the government has set up many policies and to make sure relevant, right, appropriate incentives is given. So hopefully new things coming out, new opportunities coming out from there, you know. So this would be something fertile for Islamic finance to tap on. Yeah. So these are the things that we should be looking at right now. So as far as public sector is concerned, they are seen as a key market catalyst and demand driver. So you can see from the government, they are providing direct funding grants, okay? And even they are also issuing sovereign sukuk issuance, yeah? For example, the world first sukuk, a sovereign US dollar sesame sukuk in 2021, which has raised 800 million. So GLC companies, okay, GLC companies has also shown demand, high demand, okay, which they have shown to raise nearly 7 billion ringgit Malaysia in climate-related sukuk in 2023 alone. And sukuk has been seen as a preferred instrument over loans for long-term large-scale projects. But one thing that really attracted us is the TNB, Tenaga Nasional Berhad, because it plans to invest 90 billion ringgit Malaysia from 2025 to 2030 to modernize the national grid for renewable energy integration. So in fact, they have stopped investing in new coal plants since 2021. So that is something which is very appetizing, yeah, to know that how this GLC has started supporting. Of course, there are a lot, but this is just to show you one good example. And we also discovered one ecological fiscal transfer, which is important, where national budget, they allocate some funds for the state government to protect and expand nature, forest reserve and protected areas. So this is very important for nature. Now, when we look into the private sector, when we talk about private sector, we talk about the financial institution, and development financial institutions. There is a general year-on-year increase on private financing in the banking sector, driven by NATA, which is the policy just now, and other national agendas. So VBI is seen as the catalyst in driving this Islamic climate finance, okay? Because we can see there's a growth in net zero and green financing compared to from 2020 up to 2023. So you can see high growth by even some banks, yeah, as has highlighted in the graph. Okay, so particularly based on the VBI data that we have, okay, it shows that clean transportation financing has surged 128% in 2023, and water and waste management financing grew by a dramatic 920%. So reflecting alignment with national policy. So you can see alignment must be made, yeah. So I think what drive this also is the reporting responsibility that has been ESG reporting that financial institution has to do, and also the and other corporate sectors. So that actually helped the thing, yeah. Okay, the appetite for more ESG and climate related financing. So when you look into the private sector, so Islamic banks, despite the fact that we see there's a growth, but we also see the growth for green finance. We also see that the Islamic bank also continue to have substantial involvement in carbon intensive sectors. Yeah. So we can see there's still financing for sectors like mining, quarrying, manufacturing, electricity and gas supply, okay, which has grown from 42 billion ringgit Malaysia in 2021 to 51 billion ringgit Malaysia in 2025. Okay. But having said that, I must be careful. Okay, despite the fact that we understand that you cannot just stop. You know, this is a transition risk. Okay, one of the transition risks. So you cannot just stop because Malaysia is a developed country. You know, this is part of our key sector, especially on gas, oil and gas. You know, it's like Petronas and things like that. So we can't just simply stop. But how do we facilitate the transition process or the adaptation financing? So this is where the gap is, we found out. Okay, so I think of course we must continue. There's always support for those carbon intensive sectors, but we also see there is slowly decreasing at the same time. Okay, so we can see there is a decrease from around 6.5% to 5.2%. This, when there is a decrease, it shows a gradual positive shift, yeah, towards a cleaner energy. Now, when you talk about private sector, okay, we look about private sector, we're talking about these financial customers, okay, those that actually getting financing from Islamic banks. So we see that the primary motivation of these financial corporate customers is shaped. The appetite for their client financing is shaped by the national policies, sectoral strategies, and the goals to achieving Malaysia nationally determined contributions. Okay, so these are actually created the appetite for them to look for financing in climate. Okay, so however, despite the fact that you can see on the right side, okay, in terms of the total Islamic climate finance, Islamic climate funded to these corporate sectors, corporate customers in Malaysia, you can see more green. It's getting to go more green financing facilities. Okay, there's a and less in brown, yeah, in the non-clean financing. And also we can see the social is still very small, okay, portion there. So this is another, you raise another question in terms of, because while you are trying to adapt, come up with adaptation measures, come up with the transition measures, but also we must also remember the just transition, whereby when you do this, you must remember to ensure that whatever set measures that you take, we shouldn't leave the vulnerable communities behind us. So this is something that not only we need to fund more and more of climate-related financing, but also take into consideration the risk that is affecting the vulnerable sectors of the communities. Yeah. Because as you can see in the earlier slides, I can show that I think Bank Negara has offered some funds to attend to these SMEs, yeah. I think SMEs, I can't remember whether micro SMEs, those who are marginally bankable. So because they need the support, but it's just that maybe they have not meeting some points, credit worthiness. So that's why at least Bank Negara is there giving some funds to assist. Yeah. Now, you can see that this total, as far as, okay, now, having said that, it's very important for me to give a caveat here. Now, as I have introduced this, the sharing that I do today is based on our studies, but the studies is, as I think I also mentioned in a bit, in terms of data. So we had issues in extracting data, especially related to climate and green data. So that is something that I do hope that from this year onwards, okay, with the mandatory reporting, so I do hope that in a near future we can see more clarity and transparency in the reporting their data, disclosing their data. Yeah? Okay. However, though we are saying that we can see more green funding is becoming more dominant, which is constituting 68%, but in terms of non-green, which is fossil fuel related financing, is still at 26%. Yeah, which as I mentioned, though we on paper it's easy to say that we need a clean energy, but in reality we cannot just leave our carbon intensive sectors. We need them because we are still, because we are still in the still need the sector to grow our economy, and also to make sure that there's work for people, for especially the underserved. Yeah. Now, as far as the branches operating under our Islamic finance branches operating outside Malaysia. We also try to search for some data, yeah. But to start off, when you talk about international, from international perspective, Malaysia is lucky because we are able to secure some grants, yeah, international climate grants, up to as of where we collected data is about 236 million US dollar. So that's quite a lot. I don't think so quite a lot, but at least something for us. So this grant is primarily from the EU, from the France, Germany, and Denmark. So this country has been supporting, and also there are grants from United Nations. Yeah. Now, but on the other side, on the private side, okay, private sector side, for the branches I was mentioning to you earlier, from the branches of Islamic banks, we have discovered, we tried to search for data for all branches of our banks in Malaysia, our banks who has Islamic banking license in Malaysia, and if they operate outside Malaysia. So we tried to get some data of how their branches outside Malaysia is doing when it comes to client finance. We discovered that there's most of the countries that they're operating are still operating on conventional basis, but there's one which is Indonesia. We found that they pretty okay, which they facilitated 75 ringgit Malaysia billion in climate and sustainable financing from 2022 to 2024. So these are a clear commitment. This shows that they are pretty active here in the climate action. So this demonstrates a clear commitment to transition. In fact, the thermal coal financing has been drastically cut in these branches to less than 0.07% of their total financing by 2024. So you can see, so especially Indonesia, so you know they are quite big supplier in terms of this coal. But now we can see the policy by the government in Indonesia, they're starting to reduce their reliance on coal. Yeah. So these are quickly on the some case study, which I don't think I would go deeper because I've mentioned that earlier on. Okay, these are the first World Green Sukuk, which is Tadau Energy Sukuk, which because of this green Tadau Energy, I think we have Green Sukuk. I can't remember how many as of now in the graph, but we still lead the Green Sukuk issuance in the world. This is a VBI. Okay, I have also shown you because VBI is instrumental in pushing the green movement, so-called green movement of in Malaysia in Islamic banking sector. And also this is something which is, I think you can see Tenaga Nasional TNB. So they came out with a very interesting targets. Yeah, what are their targets for coming 2050? So they are aiming to transition from conventional utility to a green energy leader with net zero emission target by 2050, which is aligned with the national agenda. So they would like to increase renewable energy capacity to 8.3 gigawatt by 2025, reduce emission intensity by 35% by 2035, and reduce coal capacity by 50% by 2035 and 100% coal-free by 2050. So you can see how they are, and they have been actively financing their transition using Islamic instruments, having raised 7.5 billion ringgit Malaysia from Sukuk, using Sukuk, and over 657 million ringgit Malaysia using Islamic finance since 2017. So if you can see their transition finance framework, which they launched in 2024, you can see what are they planning to do. So that's something that Islamic finance can tap into. Now, okay, what are the potentials? Okay, what can we see about the potential for Islamic finance? So there are, we discovered there are three key areas. Okay, one is the climate adaptation finance. Okay, this is something that Islamic finance can venture into. And I can see that for climate adaptation finance, there is huge potentials for innovative structures like wakaf-based community resilience funds or takaful Islamic insurance solutions, which I think under the VBIT, takaful operators, most of them have started to offer, especially in helping and facilitating the victims of the floods and climate impacts. Yeah. And a second is a nature-based solution and biodiversity. Okay, as of now, we discovered there's only 1 million ringgit Malaysia has been invested in biodiversity in 2023. So this is somewhere which Islamic Finance can tap to develop instruments like Blue Sukuk for marine conservation, Green Wakaf for reforestation, or biodiversity linked sukuk. So this is very, very much in the discussion. I mean, in the government talk now, yeah, biodiversity. And next is the transition finance. Okay, okay, this is somewhere that we can develop, okay, more of developing a standardized Shariah compliant framework to help carbon intensive but essential industry like manufacturing, transport, how can they transition towards carbonization pathways? So this is something that we can help them. Okay. So what are the key challenges? Okay. Based on our research, we discovered that adaptation finance, it seems that it still remained negligible. Okay, despite the fact that Malaysia is so vulnerable to physical climate risk, but climate adaptation finance is still not that huge. Yeah. So this is something I think it always when you talk about the adaptation mitigation, how Malaysia works, it depends on the top-down approach. So I think while Malaysia keeps on talking about this climate bill, climate change bill, very much talking about mitigation, but I think they started to slowly adapting and focusing on adaptation approach. Okay. So you can also see in terms of the VBI portfolio imbalance, social financing still dominates at 86.2%, while climate finance is only 30.8%. So there is a lot of imbalances in between the social finance and climate finance. So they could be more need to push for climate finance, maybe, inshallah. So fragmented coordination, yes, there is lack of unified investment strategy among government agencies, GLCs, and regulators. So because of that, there could be some mismatch, not that coordinated well. So there's something that I think with the framework that the government has just introduced last year, in terms of mainstreaming or coordinating the financing or the funding, making sure that the right funding is tapped to the right activity. So that's something that the government is currently in undertaking. So there's also weak market signal in the absence of a binding carbon pricing policy. So the financial incentive to shift away from fossil fuels remain limited for many actors. So I think because we are still new in terms of carbon pricing policy, so perhaps with more maturity in our market, more supply and demand, hopefully the carbon pricing would be more stable and more attractive. Yeah. So data gaps and inconsistent reporting, this is another big issue. Because of these data gaps and inconsistent reporting, it hinders climate risk management, effective risk management, scenario analysis, and the design of sophisticated financial product, of course, because you lack the data. Another thing is that we also lack of awareness is also a common a key in this challenge. Okay, we discovered that not industry or even among market players or even among public, they're not really aware about this climate action, climate change. So because of the lack of awareness, so that would hinder the mobilization, the appetite for capital for climate financing, and also inadequate technical capabilities, lack of specialized experts, in this climate finance. As you can see, climate action is so specialized that even it keeps growing, so we have to quickly adapt ourselves with the emerging issues and how we can address our country accurately. And also a fragmented definition of green assets. So of course we are still you can see the proliferations of many standards for sustainability, and even the common definition of green asset is still not really settled. So that cause inconsistent classifications and heighten the risk of greenwashing. Okay. So I think this would be among the last slides. Okay, what can we do? Okay, so we can mainstream Islamic finance globally, and then we try to integrate Sharia compliance structures into the global climate funds, like the Global Climate Fund and Adaptation Fund, because when we do our research, we discovered that it's not really Islamic financing is not there in this international funding. Of course, we can understand that. So I think this is a time that we can try to start networking and start to introduce Islamic finance. And then we can strengthen public-private partnership, create dedicated platform to co-design financial instruments and de-risk projects, especially for adaptation. And we can also adopt time-bound divestment and transition plan, which is very important, which will set clear targets for reducing exposure to carbon-intensive sectors. And also we should invest in in data infrastructure. Therefore, we can address data gaps. So we can invest in making key sectoral and emission data publicly available, which is very important because of once it's available publicly, we can do a more appropriate risk assessment and decision making, more informed decision making, and also we should be more innovative in our product creation, perhaps have a more blended product which blend wakaf, grants and concessional finance to pilot and scale up local resilience project. Okay. So as a conclusion, while Malaysia has successfully built a world-class ecosystem and demonstrate that Islamic finance can be a powerful engine, the next phase now, leverage on that, we could push policymakers to provide more clearer, consistent and bold policy signals that prioritize climate resilience and transitions. And for regulators, we need to continue fostering innovation while closing gaps in data reporting, implementation. And for industry players, we must embrace sustainability not as compliance, but also as a core value proposition and strategic commercial opportunity. So inshallah, if we have all this built in, inshallah, I'm very sure that Malaysia, through Islamic finance, can accelerate its transition to a just, low carbon and climate resilient future for all, inshallah. With that, I end my sharing session today, and I hope all has hopefully can follow this presentation. Sorry, I had to quickly complete the presentation because of the time space, because the limited time. So hopefully you have benefited, and I open the floor to any questions. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Brother Isaac.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noor, for the presentation. I would love to open any questions from the panelists. And other attendees, if you have any questions, just drop down your questions in the Q&A. Okay, there's one here. Before that, for our panelists, Zamiri, maybe, if you have any question. Okay, maybe I can just read the first question in the Q&A box here. Dr. No, you can hear me, right? I'm gonna
Yes,
read it.
I can hear you.
You also can see it. Okay,
Yeah, I
maybe
can see the question.
first question from Irza Mirzal. Salam. Here's my question. What's your view on blended finance involving zakat, wakaf, and government's guarantees to de-risk sustainability project? Is this a viable pathway to scale? And are there any proven use case on this blended finance involving zakat, wakaf, and government guarantees?
Thank you. Do you want me to answer now or what?
You want to read me both of the question first or one
all
by
right.
one?
Okay. All right. Okay, sure.
Okay. The second question is the Green Wakaf initiative for reforestation has already been implemented in Malaysia? If so, how does it operate? Yeah.
Okay, thank you for a very interesting. Yeah. Thank you for a very interesting question by this brother Irza. Okay, yeah, I think I've mentioned the blended finance where we will involve zakat and wakaf. That will be something that can be used to de-risk sustainability projects, definitely, because less risk and people say cheap funds, yeah. But in terms of the government guarantee, that's something that we need to see whether the government would want to take it up to guarantee this project, which I think the government, maybe for a pilot project, for a small scale project, government can take it up, yeah, depending on how big can the government carry on their shoulder. So definitely, I support this blending or leveraging on zakat, wakaf. And of course, if the government is okay, then we can leverage also on government guarantees. I'm not sure if there's any proven use cases, not to my knowledge, maybe due to my limited reading and limited knowledge. I'm not aware of any. I'm sorry. Maybe any of those that participate in this in our sharing session today can help. If they know of any proven use cases, that would be very helpful. Okay, to answer to the second question, whether the Green Wakaf initiative for reforestation has already been implemented in Malaysia, I've heard about it, but I have no knowledge. Sorry, forgive me for my ignorance. I have no knowledge whether it has been implemented. I've heard about it. Okay, and um, how has that uh, whether it has taken off and whether has it been successful. Wallahu alam, I don't have any knowledge. Sorry about that. But I open the floor to anyone who has knowledge about this, and hopefully you can share so that we can learn, inshallah. Yeah. So thank you very much for your lovely questions. I'm sorry I can't really answer most of the questions, but hopefully I've helped some, inshallah. But Aizat, there's one question.
Okay. Salam, Doctor. I'm Hambali. I would like to ask how far can Islamic finance institution would play its role in the carbon credit initiatives?
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. I think as of now, I think it's like financial institutions can play their role as a player. Okay, trading this carbon credit, so that will build uh, what you call it, um, a more active market, So so by playing their role, they help to build the market and they help to build the pricing as well. So I think, yeah, you can play a role there, and perhaps that's where you can help to treat. And of course, I'm not going to comment on the Shariah discussions on the carbon credit. Okay, I leave it to the Shariah scholars to handle it. But to me, I do see that there's a role for Islamic financial institutions to play in these carbon credit initiatives.
Okay, there's one more question from Shafiq Adli. Um, Salam, Dr. Noor. I wanted to ask whether the ongoing situation in the Middle East could be a potentially potentially have any implications for global climate finance. Thank you.
Hmm. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh for all the salam that was given to me. Okay, yes, in my view, definitely. Um, because this is just my theory. I don't know whether it's going to be it's going anyone's I mean open to anyone who wants to go against it, because at the way it is going right now, unless the war between Iran and Israel stops, that affects the oil, the flow of the oil. The of course now we do not see it, but the world is talking about it right now. It affects the supply of this oil, and therefore that could be a moment for green energy to take charge. Yeah, because whoever that is relying on oil and gas, if this kind of Russia conflict with Ukraine, this Middle East conflict, because this country, they produce oil and gas. So if this country keep on in conflicts, so the only way to protect yourself, to hedge yourself, is basically to go for more sustainable energy, uh, to the wind or through the solar and things like that. So I think that could be a moment that we can, that force us to move away from this fossil fuel. And because of that, once you want to transition from the fossil fuel to sustainability to green energy, definitely you need finance. So now is the time for Islamic finance to show that we have the product, we have the appetite, and we have the scale that you want. So I hope I've answered your question, and maybe my hypothesis is not right. So up to you to challenge it. Okay. Thank you, Brother Shafiq.
There's two more questions, I think, before we end. Hi, Doctor. Based on the recent issue involving the misuse of
Wow.
Sukuk funds, as reported by SPRM, will this affect investor confidence to the long term, particularly in promoting green energy Sukuk? Okay, that's the first one. The second one, some of the initiatives like the CCPT and NETR is generic, as in it involves both conventional and IFI. To my knowledge, is there's any in-government incentive specific towards IFI, I mean financial institution, to adopt this movement?
Mm. Okay, thank you. Hi, to these anonymous attendees who asked a very okay question, a good one. Okay, whether would that affect dented the what you call it, um, the popularity of Sukuk? I think it boils back to where money is, whether it's Shariah of course, when I say that, it boils back to individual, or it boils back to the reality where whatever you do, of course you have to be Shariah compliant, but even though you use Suku, even though you come up with Maqasid Syariah Suku, but it wouldn't stop anyone to abuse the funds that has been channeled to the Sukuk issuer. Say, for example. So to me, that is like for example, 1MDB. Okay, 1MDB saga was uncovered like in when pre-COVID, I think pre-COVID, right? I think 2018, 2017, 16, but you didn't see there's any slight, reduce in the growth. You still, Malaysia is still showing, despite that MDB came from us, but still, Malaysia's Sukuk market is still growing and we lead the market. So I'm not saying that so go on with this bribery. But no, I'm not. What I'm saying is that I think when it comes to money business, investors know that whatever you talk, but what is important, if Suku is giving the right money, right return to me, so I will go for it. Because that is like 1MDB, this SPRM issue which is currently happening is isolated for them, maybe. So inshallah, it would not affect this. It will not affect this green energy growth, inshallah. Yeah, make dua that it doesn't. Next question is about incentive initiative like CCPT and NETR is generic because it involves conventional, whether to my knowledge, if there's any government, no, I'm sorry, due to my ignorance, maybe I do not have any knowledge if the government is coming up with a specific framework, specific parameters to go for IFI, because CCPT and letter is generic, and even as a CCPT is very principle based. And then if you go and study the CCPT, because it's principle based, it's as I mentioned earlier, it has the element even do no harm, things like that. It has the element of maqasid syariah even, and even I think Securities Commission, CCPT, if I'm not mistaken, has just transition. So that is very much aligned to Islam. So whether do we need to have to come up with something, a special standard, I'm not aware of. But looking into the current existing one, uh, forgive me if I'm ignoring this, but I do not see any problem in applying it to Islamic finance, inshallah. Yeah. You guys asked me tough questions. Thank you so much. I've learned from your questions, and I do hope that helped, I've answered at least 10%, okay, for all the questions that you raised. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, Brother Isaac.
Subhanallah. Okay. Actually, I want to add about the example of the first question of blended finance. I
Yeah, please.
happen I happen to know one of the latest product of Bursa. I mean, they have come up with a Wakaf ETF, where
Mm.
where 50% of the Wakaf return will be, I mean, distributed to the unit holder, and the other 50% will be becomes a Wakaf asset. So I think
Ah,
that's example maybe on blended finance, right?
that will
Mhm.
be more of investment, right?
Yeah.
ETF, investment, yeah. Yeah, but that's a good shot. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brother Isaac. Thank you so much for helping me here.
Okay. Okay, I think any other from the panelists? Maybe final say. Um, if no, so Alhamdulillah, we have now come to the end of this sixth session of the monthly Shariah webinar series of 2025. On behalf of the organizing committee, Bank Rakyat, INCEIF University, International Islamic University of Malaysia, and Derasat for Research and Consulting Islamic Banking, we would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to all of you joining us today. And a special thanks to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Noor Suhaida Kasri, for sharing her insightful and thoughtful, provoking presentation on climate finance and tapping, I mean, the potential of Islamic finance in Malaysia. um, your perspective on climate finance is truly has truly inspired us, and we hope that what we get today will not just stop here, but to expand further to
Mm,
practically be applied among, I mean, Islamic finance as ourselves, the Islamic finance bearer, industry player, academician, to not just make Islamic finance better, but to make the world a better place with the Islamic finance, inshallah.
inshallah.
Um, so I conclude there. We hope today's session, and don't forget, we will do this monthly. Um, I mean, stay tuned with the next month topic, inshallah. And hope you guys will get enough knowledge today. And that's all for it. With that, we bid farewell until our next session, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.